price to mitigate and offset them.
Being here today. We've seen how quickly the technology can change in the last few years. So how long is this project going to be relevant for, and when does this become just an obsolete building?
Yes, it's a really good question. So we're building a kind of warehouse, a sort of high-tech warehouse. All the innovation that's going on are the sort of servers that won't be ours, they'll be our clients. So in general, data centers are moving at quite a fast pace. They're getting more dense, they're getting higher powered. We think a sort of equipment renewal of about 8 years following the cycles that we're seeing on the server side. So the building won't be obsolete, it will be updated to keep up with technological advance, but the buildings don't advance as quick as the actual servers that go in it.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep, good day. Marshall Cabo, serve as the Director of Michigan Solar Communities with Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association and a board member of our local nonprofit, Capital Area Friends of the Environment. Not representing those orgs, just saying I'm in the space. Point of clarity, the city will receive, per their numbers, $233,000 annually, so that's far different than the $873,000 number being floated around, so let's put that out there. I find a little contention on Chicago being mentioned. The lead engineer is from Chicago, so keep that in the back of mind. My concerns are around noise. There's been some talk about noise suppression. I'm still not convinced. There's been no technology shared what we're going to reach. My question though, not only around the 24 megawatts, BWL is struggling to meet the renewable energy commitments. We're struggling to get FOIAs from them. It's a very untransparent process. Has Deep Green done a human, animal, and migratory pattern study? I'm really concerned about the EMF, the electromagnetic frequencies from the center, especially next to the substation. If you look up, these data centers next to substations really produce large amount of EMF, and your lead engineer told me that nothing gets out of this Verde cage, but I'm worried about the power feeds. The 24 megawatts is significant power. You may claim that it's a small data center in the grand scheme of data centers, but it's still a significant amount of power, especially for our small hometown utility. So have you done that human, animal, and migratory pattern studies on the local conditions?
We haven't. We're going through rezoning. That's the first step for us to be able to do all the surveys that we need to do to build this project. We don't own power infrastructure. That's not our thing. So we will do all the studies that we're required to do with the city and state codes. So we can commit to that as any other building project would. But we haven't started those surveys.
Okay, and last point on that, you don't own the power source, but in your materials you claim you're going to cover the cost of that. So BWL built a natural gas plant recently on the back of ratepayers. We have rate increases in the next 2 years. You're going to be tapping into that fossil fuel infrastructure, which is very water intensive, from the fracking, the transportation, the storage, and then the ultimate burning of a methane combusting fossil fuel. So we really need renewables from this project. I want to see a legally binding community benefit agreement. Is that something that you would engage with our city?
Without seeing details, it's hard to commit to anything. We want to maximize renewables, whether that's on-site or off-site. We do a lot of work in the UK, not just buying renewable power, isn't buying certificates, but buying half-hourly matched. So we make sure that we're using power when renewables are producing the power. So we do a lot of work for that. That's what we want to do for any of our sites, so we can commit to working as hard as possible to maximize the use of renewables on every single one of our sites. But just to stress again, we're going through rezoning so we can start all of this work.
Just to clarify on the $800,000 figure that Marshall brought up, that is from the city staff report, and that is total in property taxes for city, county, school district, library, etc.
Coming down the pipeline that are going to be game changers that we all should hear about at some point here in the very near future.
The requirements for renewables right now by state law is 15%. We're at 21, so we exceed the requirement, and we balance that based on rates because you can be a leader there and you're going to drive up rates. So we do exceed that, and we are on track to be 50% renewable by the 2030 deadline. We have no concerns getting there. We are looking into some new technology for this site that would be the first plant built in Michigan that takes and uses fuel cell technology. We think it's very exciting. We're working on it right now. As far as 24 megawatts, that would be a 4% load increase for us, so we're not concerned about that either.
And then, just to clarify one more point, yes, there was increases for 2 years, but not the next 2 years, because I think that was a little bit confusing. Those rate increases have already happened, and Dick and I have discussed this, that 2-year rate increases are not likely to happen again in the future like that.
No, those will catch up from COVID.
Yeah.
Because we suspended all rate hikes during COVID, so we had to catch up with the inflation at that time. So future rate hikes would be minimal for that.
Thank you. All right.
My question is, what use will the hot water be in the summer? I can see like using it for heating, especially in the example you provided where it's using the pool. But in the summer, obviously you need to cool everything down. It's quite hot here and humid, so I'm curious about where all of that heat would go in the summertime.
It's easy one. Most of our heat use isn't for heating, it's for process. Assembly plants and commercial businesses that need steam, soon to be hot water for their process. So the load does come up in the winter as it gets warmer, but our demand in the summer is very high as well to keep the manufacturing plants running.
So this would be more for like manufacturing stuff and not necessarily like heating buildings and stuff like that?
It's one loop, and so not to get too far in the weeds, we currently supply those customers with steam heat. We are trying to lower our carbon footprint. Steam heat, you use millions of gallons of water every year, one time, and it goes down the drain. We're going to a closed loop. It's a build out. It'll be hot water, and that's why when we started designing this 2 years ago and started the conversion, then Deep Green, we heard about them. We talked to them because if Deep Green doesn't build where they are, then we have to build a heating plant for that hot water. And if they build where they're at, then we can take that waste heat. That will reduce our natural gas burn for the hot water utility by 25%. That's about a $1.1 million savings in natural gas, which they had up there. And that reduction goes straight to the customer. That doesn't go through our general fund. Any up or down movement in gas is refunded directly to the customer. Now that's the hot water customer. And the 25% reduction is the hot water side of the utility, because we're also chilled water, electric, and water. So I want to be clear, it's not a 25% reduction in our entire gas portfolio, just to the hot water customer. That's a sizable amount, 25% of that. So that's why we were interested in this project, to take that waste heat, which would generally just be exhausted into the air, and use it to heat our hot water. So there is plenty of low demand in the summer for that as well. Again, it's a little higher in the winter because building heat comes up. We have apartment complexes and office buildings, but the heat that goes to manufacturing facilities is pretty constant year round.
All right, I've got.
So, this was one of the questions I was wondering. So you said 1.1 million approximately in natural gas savings, but then, and you said that goes directly to the commercial water customers, not the residential. But then there's also been floating around the idea that there would be $1 million in increased equity payments to the city, and that's a different stream of funds from the 1.1 million in direct savings.
Yeah, where the savings, where the companies realize the savings, it goes to that rate class.
Yeah.
So since the hot water / steam customers are having the savings would go to them. The borderline pays the city 6.1% of gross income because the city owns the borderline. That's the return on their investment. That investment will go up $1 million because of the energy sales that are produced by Deep Green. So that is two different revenue streams. The city will get $1 million from the borderline. In fact, it's a little above that. And then the hot water utility customers will save on the fuel consumption as the conversion takes place.
So the total power cost would be roughly $1 million divided by 6.1%. Is what you're expecting back from them?
No, that is the 6.1%. You have to do the math backwards to get to the gross sales. It's a little confusing.
No, okay, that's what I meant to ask. Okay, so then the next question is for you, Lou. Thank you for being here. I understand where you're placing your bet. Of course, there's a lot of debate in the markets and even among the sort of AI big tech about whether we are or are not overbuilding data center capacity right now. There's a lot of speculation about whether there is or isn't a bubble. Obviously, you're betting on the side of there's going to be a major build out of these data centers. Would you admit that there is at least a percentage possibility that we're in the process of overall overbuild of data center capacity?
Absolutely, totally. But there are, sorry.
So in that case, and are you exposed to the costs of data that are being set and intermingled, understanding you're not a hyperscale provider? Are the costs that you're able to charge exposed to the cost of data in the hyperscale AI data market?
I mean, it's all a connected market. We're not totally separated. Sorry, yeah, we're not totally separated from that, and we won't be. But they are pretty different markets. You know, these huge sort of AWS, OpenAI, Meta, they're filling it with their own computers to power their own models, to build supremacy in their own models. You know, we're hosting blue chip companies that just happen to use a little bit of AI in their operations. The economics are different, the whole business model is different. It's sort of a local shop versus a massive out-of-town Walmart. Obviously, they're both in the kind of retail sector, but they're driven by very different things. There's very different prices, and so yes, it is connected. It does look like there is a real possibility of a overbuild out on these huge data centers, but we are pretty certain that small businesses, universities will need smaller co-location facilities to host their AI compute, and that's the market that we're going after.
Would you admit that if the bubble does pop, there's a risk that you'll be exposed?
I can't tell the future. I don't know how infrastructure bubbles pop and what that means. It won't be a great thing for anyone, for the whole of America. But we're pretty confident that we're kind of more bubble-proof or more sort of cycle-proof than other companies.
Thank you.
Our city is declining in the region. Okay, we have a great region. Lansing proper is not in. So what I would ask you, does this data center have any opportunity to bring businesses into the city limits, not 421 limits, into the city?
I believe so, and I think we heard from Luke as well as some of the advantages of who would use this data center in terms of research components and so forth. I'm excited and optimistic that the answer to that is yes. I don't know that we know from Deep Green exactly who those will be yet, but I think the competitive advantage we offer as a region with Michigan State University gives me great faith and optimism that question will be answered yes.
So do you think in some of our vacant buildings that we have, we're actually turning them on to housing? We've got to turn the housing, but we don't have any jobs for
right.
people that are here. So do you think this would be a selling point to convince some people to move their business here?
I do. I think something like this and where the world is going in terms of AI, cloud storage, and computing, I think having this here in our downtown, providing the competitive advantage with BWL, I think opens the door to secondary and tertiary types of business development, to your point, that could occupy vacant spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have and
about adding more heat to our environment in general. And I don't see a lot of benefit from this, but I'm glad to see that this one at least is trying very hard to address the environmental concerns. I do know that data centers usually have a backup system in case of power outages. I know we have power outages, so what are you planning for backup electricity if all of a sudden board, water, and light goes down?
Yeah, there will be on-site backup. There's a number of different ways you can do that. In the UK, we use biodiesel, so sort of green diesel. We don't know, we haven't looked at it here. It is biodiesel, but yes. It's not stored on site. We have a sort of refueling arrangement. It can be through the natural gas pipes, but these things are only turned on in one, the event of a power cut, so you hope very rare, and two, sort of regular maintenance and sort of testing, and by that I mean monthly.